Welcome back to the Cops and Writers Podcast bonus series, where I'm reading chapters from my upcoming book, Police Stories, The Rookie Years, True Crime, Chaos, and Life as a Big City Cop. I'm Patrick O'Donnell, retired Milwaukee police sergeant, and I'll be your host for tonight's show. Last week, I read you one of the most intense chapters in the book, All City Assist. 3 dead bodies, cops taking gunfire, and a sea of casings. Tonight's chapter is different. It's about one of the funniest and most tragically flawed cops I ever worked with. His nickname was Wojo. He was one of those characters that you will never forget. He could have made his living as a stand-up comic, but instead chose to be a cop. This chapter starts funny, but it gets serious. And it ends in a way that stayed with me a long time after Wojo was gone. This is just a couple of stories about Wojo. There are some I will take to the grave. I hope I do him justice. This chapter is called Wojo. Here we go. There were characters on the job that you worked with who should have been stand-up comedians. Wojo was one of those guys. My first recollection of Wojo was when Patty and I were working our squad on a slow night. We took a drive by Lake Michigan and went up East Water Tower Road up to North Terrace Avenue. At the top of the curvy road was one of my academy classmates standing on the sidewalk, looking like a sad little girl who had just been abandoned by her parents. I pulled up next to her and Patty did the talking. "Hey, are you okay? Aren't you with Wojo?" She let out a sigh of frustration. "Yeah, he ran out of gas." Patty shook her head. "What the hell? Again?" I grabbed her shoulder. "What do you mean, again?" Even though we had a gas pump in the squad parking lot, Wojo had a bad habit of running out of gas. This time he left his partner with the squad and hitchhiked. That's right, hitchhiked to a gas station to avoid the embarrassment of calling a boss or another cop. After about 5 minutes of us standing by with his partner, he jumped out of a car with a red gas container laughing. "Ain't that a bitch?" We all shook our heads and Patty chewed him out while he kept smiling at her. I almost never saw him with a frown. He was always cracking jokes or laughing. That morning we had a choir practice and Wojo was late. His partner John was giving him shit about being tardy and Wojo, without missing a beat, came back at him. "Hey brother, I had to feed the old lady breakfast first. A pack of Newports and a 6-pack of Pabst Blue Ribbon." The room erupted in laughter as he kept up with the one-liners. I almost had projectile beer streaming through my nostrils because of him. He was comic gold. The only time I saw Wojo serious was at a gun hitch we were both called to. It was 7 a.m., and multiple calls came in for a subject shooting a rifle out of a window of a 4-family apartment building. Wojo and I were the only ones available, and we were both working one man that night. Our sergeant got a hold of us on a side channel and told us he was far away. It would take him a while to make it to our location. I told Wojo where I would park, and we would walk up tactically to the location utilizing cover and concealment. All he did was laugh. I made it to the location and parked my squad out of sight about a block and a half from the target house. I grabbed the Remington 870 from the bracket and tried to raise Wojo on the radio. No answer. The dispatcher heard me banging Wojo. "Squad 51. Are you on location?" No answer. My heart dropped, thinking something had happened to Wojo. I also knew the bad guy had the tactical advantage. He had the high ground and a rifle. The dispatcher continued attempting to raise Wojo in the air, with no luck. He also let the sergeant know what was going on. I continued on foot at a trot, trying to keep as close to the houses in the area as possible. I was now close to the target house and slowed down. I took a peek from cover and saw Wojo's squad parked in front of the target house. I was so mad that I whispered to myself, "Fucking Wojo." The front door was open, and I didn't see any rifles sticking out of windows, So I ran to the open door and made my way through and froze, scanning the area. I could hear a muffled voice upstairs. It was Wojo. I carefully made my way up the stairs with the shotgun at the low ready. There was an apartment door open, and Wojo's voice was becoming clear. Come on, brother. You don't need this shit. Just drop the gun so we can get this over with. Drop the gun. This is the real deal, I thought to myself as I carefully made my way towards Wojo's voice. I went through the apartment and saw Wojo to the side of a bedroom doorway, pointing his gun towards the room. He glanced over at me and then inside the room. I took a peek with my shotgun at the ready and saw what no cop wants to see. A man was lying on a bed, just wearing his boxers, covered in sweat. He had a small boy, maybe 5 or 6, next to him with a rifle pointing at the child's head. The child was frozen in fear, shaking and crying. My heart sank as I saw what was possibly a no-win scenario. I immediately got up on the air and advised the dispatcher what we had. I looked down at my shotgun, which would be inefficient in this situation. It was loaded with 00 buckshot, and the pattern would spread as it traveled. That was too risky, given how close the kid was to the suspect. I carefully put the shotgun on the ground by my feet and took out my Glock pistol. I could deliver a much more precise shot, if need be, with that compared to the tube. One thing we had going for us was that the suspect's trigger finger was off the trigger. If he moved his index finger to the trigger, I'd be forced to shoot. We could hear sirens in the background, and the bad guy noticed as well. Wojo was now losing his temper. One thing he hated more than anything was overtime. And if the Tactical Enforcement Unit, otherwise known as TEU, showed up, they would spend hours negotiating with this turd. Finally, Wojo lost it. Listen, you dipshit. Do you hear those sirens in the background? That's the SWAT team and a small army of others that will make this a zoo. I know I will work late, but I don't want to be here all day. Be a fucking man, put the rifle on the ground, get up so I can handcuff you. The guy in his boxers was shocked that a cop talked to him like that. He thought about it for a couple of seconds and threw the rifle on the ground and stood up. Once the handcuffs were on this guy, it was an incredible feeling of relief. Like an elephant that was on my shoulders hopped off. I didn't realize it, but there were more cops in the other room and the kid's mom. He went running to her and they both held each other and cried. I grabbed the rifle and saw that it was empty. This guy shot until he ran out of bullets. I shook my head and thought, what if I shot this guy who was holding an empty gun? I would have been justified in shooting him, but would have to live with the public scrutiny and my own self-doubts. Wojo and I walked out the main door proudly as the TU watched us in disbelief. Me with my shotgun in one hand and the bad guy's rifle in the other, as Wojo brought out the guy in his boxers like a trophy. Everyone was expecting a long and drawn-out ordeal, but Wojo didn't want to work too much overtime. The man with the rifle was drunk and high. He fired the rifle out the window until it was dry. Thankfully, all he hit was the ground in the brick building across the street. Nobody was injured. The boy was his son, and he and his girlfriend were going through a bitter custody battle. This was his way of dealing with it. We were both written up for commendations, but the brass did not approve it. I don't know why. That was a win for Wojo and me that day. There would be more occasions on which Wojo would make us all laugh. Unfortunately, Wojo had demons, and he wound up on a slippery slide downwards, losing his job as a cop, and a few years later, he died of pancreatic cancer. Thanks for the laughs, Wojo. Until we meet again. That's Wojo from Police Stories, The Rookie Years. The book has 34 chapters, some funny, some tragic, all true. It's on pre-order now on Amazon for $3.99. Save yourself some money on the pre-order. The price will go up when it goes live. Search Police Stories Patrick O'Donnell or click the link in the show notes. Next week, we're going back to our regular programming with a guest interview. Thanks for listening. Next week, I'll be back with another chapter from Police Stories, The Rookie Years. Until next time, let's be careful out there. And again, thanks for the laughs, Wojo. Until we meet again.